So for our technicians, so when we're onboarding new users, we have these forms for our technicians to use, and they don't really know what license should be applied to new users. And I know you have like the direct M365 license drop down that you can use in the onboarding form, but we don't expect them to know what license to assign to them. So we basically want them to select a user to copy and have their license that user has be assigned to those new users. And so I made a new workflow that's used as a workflow listener on the new employee Rewst workflow that they provided for us. And this basically just sees, is there a user that they're currently copying? And if there is, we get that user and assign them those license. And a lot of this is actually stolen from the new employee workflow. I've just sort of taken two different sections of it and slapped them together. So in the first section here, it checks to see if the completed workflow has this variable defined. And if it is defined, I set it to a new context variable just to make it a little bit easier to work with due to the fact that I don't want to have to constantly write completed workflow.ctx. And I do the same thing for the ticket ID so that they can output the results to the ticket. And based on the org variables that are defined when you set up the onboarding form, it goes through the on-prem AD versus Azure AD. And so if it goes to on-prem, it gets the user from on-prem using the script provided, and then it lists the users, gets the single user, all provided to us from Rewst. And then it gets the license, and I get the license SKU IDs, which are provided when you get that specific user ID, and you can select certain variables. And I get those specific assigned license, whether it's Azure AD or on-prem AD, it doesn't particularly matter. And I don't, at least for us, we don't use group-based license and primary license. We just use the direct ones. So I didn't implement these specific two. You really could just take it from the new user
we can open the
workflow
door now. I just didn't want
and
to be too loud if I was
just copy them over, and it would work perfectly. So then it gets these specific two we don't use. So you can really just take these specific ones from the new employee workflow and throw them in here, and it'll work just fine. All of these variables are variables that are used by the new employee workflow. And so we just use direct ones, and it just loops through each of the license to copy, and it sends in their, where is it? Oh yeah, their SKU ID, which is the same value that the new employee workflow would use. And then at the end here, I have an update ticket, which basically just outputs the following licenses have been assigned and says what those license names were, not their SKU IDs, just because most people don't really know what those are. So it'll be like F3, E3, Power Apps for developers, whatever. And if it fails, it says it couldn't assign them. And that's basically it in a nutshell.